You wake up one morning and for just a moment everything feels different. The sunlight streaming through your window carries something you cannot name, something that makes your heart skip with recognition. For a few precious seconds, you understand something profound about existence, about your place in the cosmic order, about the deeper meaning that usually hides beneath the surface of ordinary life. Your breath catches as this wave of clarity washes over you, and you think, finally, this is it. This is the answer I have been searching for. But then the alarm goes off, or the phone rings, or the mundane demands of the day come rushing back, and that moment of profound understanding slips away like water through your fingers. You try desperately to hold on to it, to write it down, to capture even a fragment of what felt so real and clear just moments ago. But it is gone. All that remains is a hollow ache in your chest, and the frustrating memory that you were so close, so very close to understanding something essential about life itself. This happens to you more often than you care to admit. These moments of lucidity arrive unannounced, like unexpected guests who bring gifts of wisdom and insight, only to disappear before you can properly receive what they are offering. You have felt this in moments of deep meditation, when suddenly the veil lifts and you glimpse the interconnectedness of all things, only to have your analytical mind crash back in with its endless chatter and questions. You have experienced it during profound conversations with friends, when the words seem to carry meanings beyond their literal sense, when you feel you are touching something eternal and true, but then the moment passes, and you are left wondering if it really happened at all. You know this frustration intimately because it speaks to one of the deepest hungers of the human soul, the longing to understand, to connect with something greater than our everyday experience, to find meaning that endures beyond the constant flux of ordinary consciousness. What you are experiencing, what has perhaps driven you to seek answers in videos like this one, is what the great Romanian scholar Mircea Eliade identified as one of the most crucial yet mysterious aspects of human spiritual experience. Eliade understood that we modern people live in a kind of exile from the sacred, in what he called profane time and profane space, where our consciousness is fragmented and scattered among countless distractions. But he also recognized that even in this fragmented state, moments of sacred reality continue to break through, offering us glimpses of a deeper, more meaningful order of existence. These are the moments when the sacred manifests itself in our ordinary world, when the divine reveals itself through the mundane, when we suddenly understand that there are layers of reality beyond what our rational minds normally perceive. Eliade called these breakthrough moments hierophanies, manifestations of the sacred that transform ordinary objects, places, or experiences into something luminous and meaningful. But he also understood why these moments are so fleeting, why they seem to disappear just when we most desperately want to grasp them, to understand them, to make them permanent fixtures in our consciousness. The reason these lucid moments vanish before we can fully understand them has to do with the fundamental nature of how modern consciousness works and how it differs from what Eliade called the consciousness of homo religiosus, the naturally religious human being who lived in constant awareness of the sacred dimension of existence. The problem is not that these moments are illusions or fantasies, as our skeptical modern minds might suggest. The problem is that we have learned to live in a mode of consciousness that is fundamentally disconnected from the sacred rhythms and patterns that once gave human life its meaning and coherence. We have trained ourselves to think in linear, analytical terms, to break everything down into components that can be measured, categorized, and controlled. But the sacred operates according to different principles entirely. It reveals itself in what Eliade called sacred time, which is not the mechanical time of clocks and calendars, but the eternal time of myth and ritual, the time in which all meaningful events are always happening simultaneously. When we have those moments of profound lucidity, we are briefly stepping out of profane time and into sacred time, where understanding comes not through analysis but through participation, not through thinking, but through being. This is why the moment your rational mind tries to grasp what is happening, the experience tends to dissolve. It is like trying to catch moonlight in a jar or hold a snowflake in your palm. The very act of grasping destroys what you are trying to hold on to. Sacred understanding requires a different mode of consciousness, one that allows the mystery to remain mysterious while still participating fully in its revelation. Eliade observed that in traditional cultures, people understood this paradox intuitively. They created elaborate systems of ritual and symbol, that allowed them to regularly enter sacred time and sacred space without trying to possess or control the experience. They knew that the sacred reveals itself when it chooses to, and that the human role is not to capture it, but to be available to it, to create the conditions where hierophany can occur naturally. Think of the way ancient peoples approached their sacred sites, their temples, their moments of prayer and worship. They did not go with the expectation of solving the mystery of existence once and for all, but rather with the understanding that they were entering into relationship with something infinitely greater than themselves, something that would reveal as much of itself as they were capable of receiving in any given moment. They understood that sacred understanding comes in waves, in cycles, in seasonal rhythms that cannot be forced or hurried. This wisdom has been largely lost in our modern world, where we have been conditioned to believe that everything worth knowing can and should be made explicit, measurable, and permanently available for our intellectual consumption. But the sacred does not operate according to these modern assumptions. It reveals itself in moments of what Eliade called breakthrough, when the ordinary world becomes transparent to transcendent reality. But these moments cannot be manufactured or preserved through mental effort alone. They arise from a quality of receptiveness, of openness, of what spiritual traditions have always called faith, though not faith in the sense of believing certain propositions, but faith in the sense of trusting the process of revelation itself. When you have those moments of lucidity, those instants when everything seems to make perfect sense, you are experiencing what our ancestors would have recognized immediately as communion with the sacred dimension of reality. The reason these moments disappear so quickly is not because they are false or insignificant, but because they belong to a different order of experience than the one your ordinary consciousness is equipped to maintain continuously. You know what touches me most when I read your messages? It is realizing that we are not alone in this search. If you are listening to me now and feel that emptiness, that sensation that something important is missing in your life, I want you to know that I understand exactly what you are going through. There were moments when I also felt completely disconnected from the sacred, lost in the midst of a routine that seemed to suck all the magic out of existence. That is why I want to ask you a very direct question. What was the last moment you felt there was something greater than yourself present in your life? It could have been contemplating a sunset, listening to music, or simply in an instant of silence. If you feel comfortable, write in the comments, "I miss the sacred in my daily life," and briefly tell when that last moment was. Your story might be exactly what someone needs to read today to feel less alone in this journey. And I promise I will read each comment with the care it deserves. Understanding why the lucid disappear before being understood also requires us to look at what Eliade identified as the fundamental difference between traditional and modern consciousness. Traditional peoples lived what he called the myth of eternal return, meaning they understood their individual lives as participating in timeless archetypal patterns that gave every action and experience cosmic significance. When they experienced moments of clarity or insight, these moments were immediately connected to a larger framework of meaning that helped sustain and integrate the experience. Modern people, by contrast, live in what Eliade called linear time, where each moment is separate and isolated, where experiences are not connected to any overarching pattern of meaning. So when we have those breakthrough moments of sacred understanding, we have no cultural framework to hold them, no community of understanding to help us integrate what has been revealed. The moments arise and then dissolve, because they have nowhere to land in our fragmented consciousness and fragmented culture. This is not a personal failing on your part. It is a structural characteristic of modern life that affects everyone who has been raised in secular, rationalistic societies. The path toward allowing these moments of lucidity to endure longer, to reveal more of themselves before disappearing, involves learning to recreate some of the conditions that traditional cultures took for granted. This does not mean abandoning modern life or rejecting rational thought, but rather learning to cultivate what Eliade called the nostalgic longing for sacred time and sacred space. This longing is itself a form of spiritual practice, because it keeps alive in us the recognition that there are dimensions of reality beyond what ordinary consciousness can access. When you feel that ache for meaning, that sense that something essential is missing from your daily experience, you are not suffering from a psychological problem that needs to be cured. You are experiencing what Eliade would have recognized as the naturally religious dimension of human consciousness, asserting itself despite all the cultural conditioning that tells you such longings are primitive or irrational. The key insight that emerges from Eliade's work is that these moments of lucidity disappear not because they are unreal, but because they are too real for our ordinary consciousness to sustain. They are like sunlight that is too bright for eyes that have become accustomed to dim indoor lighting. The sacred has not withdrawn from the world. Rather, we have developed modes of consciousness that are not trained to perceive and receive sacred manifestations. But this can be changed through patient, consistent practice of what might be called sacred attention. This means learning to approach ordinary experiences with the same quality of openness and reverence that traditional peoples brought to their ritual activities. It means recognizing that any moment, any object, any encounter has the potential to become a hierophany if we bring the right kind of consciousness to it. Think about the last time you experienced one of those moments of breakthrough understanding. What were you doing? What was your state of mind in the moments leading up to the experience? If you pay close attention, you will probably notice that these moments tend to arise when your ordinary analytical thinking has relaxed its grip, when you are in a state of what might be called receptive awareness rather than grasping, controlling awareness. They come during meditation, during quiet walks in nature, during conversations where you feel deeply heard and understood, during encounters with art or music that touch something beyond your personal preferences and opinions. They arise when you are temporarily released from the burden of having to figure everything out, when you can simply be present to what is happening without immediately trying to analyze or categorize the experience. This quality of consciousness can be cultivated deliberately, though paradoxically the cultivation must be done without attachment to achieving any particular result. It is like tending a garden. You prepare the soil, plant the seeds, and provide water and sunlight, but you cannot force the plants to grow according to your schedule or preferences. Eliade taught that every human being has an innate capacity for what he called cosmic consciousness, the ability to perceive ordinary reality as permeated with sacred meaning and significance. But this capacity atrophies when it is not regularly exercised, just as physical muscles become weak when they are not used. In traditional cultures, this cosmic consciousness was exercised constantly through ritual, ceremony, storytelling, and daily practices that connected individual experience to the larger rhythms of natural and spiritual reality. Modern people must consciously reconstruct these practices in forms that are appropriate to contemporary life. This might involve developing regular meditation practices that help you cultivate receptive awareness. It might mean spending time in natural settings where you can experience yourself as part of larger ecological and cosmic processes. It might involve engaging seriously with art, music, poetry, and literature that opens your consciousness to dimensions of reality beyond the purely practical and rational. Most importantly, it involves approaching your ordinary daily activities with what Eliade called sacred attention, the understanding that any moment has the potential to become a doorway to transcendent understanding if you bring the right quality of presence to it. But perhaps most importantly, Eliade would remind us that the disappearance of lucid moments is itself part of the sacred pattern. In the ancient mysteries, initiates understood that divine revelation comes in cycles, that there are seasons of clarity and seasons of darkness, times when the sacred is vividly present, and times when it seems to withdraw entirely. This rhythm is not a flaw in the system, it is the system. The sacred reveals itself partially, temporarily, in order to awaken in us the longing that drives us to seek ever deeper and more complete understanding. If we could possess sacred understanding permanently, it would cease to be sacred and become merely another piece of information in our mental inventory. The very elusiveness of these moments is what keeps them sacred, what prevents them from being reduced to conceptual knowledge that we can manipulate and control. This brings us to what is perhaps Eliade's most important insight about the nature of spiritual experience, that the goal is not to capture or possess the sacred, but to learn to live in right relationship with it. This means accepting that there will always be mystery, that our understanding will always be partial and temporary, that the most profound truths can only be glimpsed rather than grasped. But it also means recognizing that these glimpses are enough, that they carry within them transformative power that continues to work in our consciousness long after the initial moment of clarity has passed. Every time you experience one of those breakthrough moments, even if it disappears before you can fully understand it, something in your consciousness is permanently altered. You have been touched by the sacred, and that touch leaves its mark even when the experience itself fades from memory. The practice, then, becomes one of learning to trust these fleeting encounters with transcendence, to honor them without trying to control them, to let them do their transformative work in their own time and their own way. This requires developing what might be called faith in the process itself, the trust that the sacred knows what it is doing when it reveals itself briefly, and then withdraws. Traditional peoples understood this rhythm intuitively. They knew that the divine reveals as much as we are ready to receive, and that trying to force or extend the revelation beyond its natural duration actually interferes with the deeper process of transformation that it is designed to catalyze. The moments of lucidity are not meant to be permanent possessions, but rather catalysts for ongoing transformation, seeds planted in consciousness that will grow and develop in their own organic timing. As you reflect on your own experiences of these disappearing moments of clarity, remember that their transience does not diminish their significance. In fact, according to Eliade's understanding, their temporary nature is precisely what makes them so powerful. They break through the crust of ordinary consciousness just long enough to remind you that there are other ways of being, other dimensions of reality, other possibilities for understanding yourself and your place in the cosmic order. They plant seeds of longing that drive you to continue seeking, to continue growing, to continue opening yourself to ever deeper experiences of sacred reality. The fact that you recognize these moments, the fact that you feel their loss when they disappear, is itself a sign that the sacred dimension of consciousness is alive and active in you, despite all the cultural conditioning that might suggest otherwise. If you have made it this far, it is because something inside you recognizes that there is a different path, a deeper way to understand your own spiritual journey. I know what it is like to feel lost amid so much noise of the modern world, seeking answers that always seem to slip through your fingers. That is why I created this space, this refuge where we can explore together the ancient wisdom that still pulses alive in our hearts. When you subscribe to this channel, you are not just clicking a button, you are joining a community of people who, like you, feel that life has deeper layers waiting to be discovered. Here you will find not just knowledge but genuine embrace for your thirst for meaning. Subscribe now and be part of this journey of rediscovering the sacred in everyday life. Your soul deserves this gift. The ultimate teaching that emerges from understanding why the lucid disappear before being understood is that this very disappearance is itself a sacred teaching. It humbles our rational minds, which want to possess and control everything. It teaches us to value mystery, to live with questions, to find meaning in the search itself rather than only in the finding. It reminds us that the most important dimensions of human existence cannot be reduced to concepts that we can file away and access at will. They must be lived, experienced, participated in with our whole being, not just our analytical minds. This is why wisdom traditions have always emphasized that sacred understanding is gained through being rather than thinking, through transformation rather than information, through opening rather than grasping. Every time you experience one of those moments of breakthrough clarity that then fades away, you are being invited into a deeper understanding of how consciousness itself works, how the sacred reveals itself in human experience, and what it means to live in right relationship with mystery. The goal is not to solve the mystery once and for all, but to learn to dance with it, to let it transform you through its comings and goings, to find in its very elusiveness a teaching about the nature of reality itself. When you can embrace this paradox, when you can find joy in the momentary glimpses rather than frustration at their disappearance, you will discover that the sacred is actually much more present than you realized. It is present in the longing itself, in the searching, in the very awareness that something essential seems to be missing from ordinary consciousness. This awareness, this recognition that there are depths to reality that normal waking consciousness cannot access, is itself a form of sacred consciousness. It is the beginning of what Eliade called the recovery of the religious dimension of human existence. Not religion in the narrow sense of particular beliefs and institutions, but religiousness in the deeper sense of living, with constant awareness that existence itself is fundamentally mysterious and meaningful. The moments of lucidity come and go, but the capacity to recognize them, to be touched by them, to let them awaken in you the longing for ever deeper understanding, this capacity is always present. It is your birthright as a human being, and no amount of cultural conditioning can completely destroy it. As we come to the end of our exploration today, I want you to carry with you this understanding. The next time you experience one of those moments of profound clarity that seems to disappear just when you most want to grasp it, remember that its disappearance is not a failure or a loss but a gift. It is the sacred's way of keeping you humble, keeping you seeking, keeping you open to further revelation. Let it awaken in you not frustration but gratitude, not grasping but receptiveness, not the desire to possess but the willingness to be transformed. In this way, even the disappearing moments become permanent teachers, guides that lead you ever deeper into the mystery of your own sacred nature and the sacred nature of existence itself. The lucid may disappear before being understood by the mind, but they leave their transformative mark on the soul, and that is where true understanding has always resided.